It's a commonly held belief that Psychic type is the best type in Generation 1. However, this is simply not true. Normal types, on average, outclass their Psychic type counterparts in multiple areas. Here's why. There are 9 fully evolved Psychic type Pokémon in Generation 1. However, for most of your playthrough, only 7 are viable to use on a team, due to 2 of them being Mew and Mewtwo. Mew is a hidden Pokémon that requires a lot of unintuitive steps to acquire, while Mewtwo is locked into the post-game. That leaves the following 7 Pokémon if you want a Psychic type on your team: Alakazam, Slowbro, Jynx, Mr. Mime, Hypno, Exeggutor, and Starmie. While any of these can make great additions to your team, they're outnumbered by the quantity of great normal types. We are not saying that you should not use a Psychic type on your team in favor of a normal type. We are saying that it's easier to pump experience into a solid normal type than it is to find and train a Psychic type. Now, let's get into the availability of normal types in Gen 1. They're everywhere. There are 14 fully evolved normal types to choose from: Raticate, Snorlax, Farfetch'd, Fearow, Pidgeot, Persian, Porygon, Lickitung, Kangaskhan, Wigglytuff, Clefable, Chansey, Dodrio, and last but not least, Tauros. And out of these, a whopping 12 of them are usable for a normal type slot on your team. Porygon, as a special normal type, doesn't usually hold its own in Gen 1. Farfetch'd gets massively outperformed by Fearow and Pidgeot if you're after a normal and flying dual type, for the most part. Overall, it's way easier to get a good normal type than it is to obtain a good Psychic type, especially if you consider that some Psychic types are locked behind Elemental Stone or trade evolution methods, like Exeggutor, Starmie, and Alakazam, the last of which you can only get if you had a friend with whom to trade, which not all of us did. There are only 2 normal types that evolve via an inconvenient evolution method: Wigglytuff and Clefable. With that said, the Moonstones needed to evolve Jigglypuff and Clefairy can be found very early in Gen 1, as 1 appears en route 2, and 2 can be found in Mount Moon, while the Leaf Stone needed to evolve Execute and the Water Stone needed to evolve Staryu can only be bought from the Celadon department store, a mid-game area. For the most part, normal types can learn more moves than Psychic types. More importantly, normal types can learn some of the strongest moves in Gen 1 much easier. The most crucial factor here is the same type attack bonus. You can get powerful normal move TMs earlier and easier than Psychic type equivalents. The first of these is TM01, which is Mega Punch. It can be found in Mount Moon. Next is TM08, which is Body Slam. It's obtained on the SSN. Another must mention is TM12, which is Hyper Beam. It can be bought from the Rocket Game Corner in Celadon City. Most of these top tier moves can be taught to a large number of the best normal types in this generation. Comparatively, the only good teachable move for Psychic types is TM29, which is the eponymous move Psychic. The only way to get it is from Mr. Psychic's house in Saffron City. As such, you can get excellent normal type moves much earlier than the only good Psychic type one. Now, consider the damage potential of the aforementioned moves and their brethren. Normal moves were all physical in Gen 1, while Psychic moves were special. In Generation 1, since the special stat influenced both attack and defense, anything with a high special stat would be able to tank incoming special attacks. This means that even if you had a powerhouse Psychic type that knows Psychic, you're more likely to come across foes that could take more than one hit. Comparatively, since the attack and defense stats are separate, physical moves would more often hit enemies harder due to there being more of a balance between which Pokemon had high stats in these two areas. The only real way to wall a normal type in Gen 1 was with a Rock or Ghost type due to Rock resisting normal type moves and Ghost being immune to them, though the latter is pretty rare. However, given that normal types can learn great coverage moves, your preferred pocket monster can most likely learn a ground type move that would easily counter a rock type, and any ghost type foes. Remember that the Gengar line is also part poison type, which makes them weak to ground type moves. TM28, Dig, can be obtained very early in Cerulean City from the house that was robbed. Then there's TM26, Earthquake, which can be obtained while routing Team Rocket out of Silphco. Both of these are physical moves, which get boosted by the high average attack stat with the best normal type Pokemon. Although Psychic type moves are technically better offensively in Gen 1 due to hitting fighting and poison types for super effective damage, whereas normal type moves will never do so on any opponent. As we said before, you're more likely to come up against a Pokemon with a high special stat than you are to find one with high defense in Generation 1. Furthermore, with the exception of Slowbro and Executor, Psychic types in Generation 1 were pretty squishy due to poor defense stats. This means that if they failed to knock out a foe immediately, they would be more likely to get knocked out by counterattacks. There's no better way to determine which type is better than to pit the best members of each against one another in a predictive environment. We'll be considering stats and moves to determine which Pokemon is most likely to come out on top in all the matchups we do. We'll go through each matchup individually so that you'll know the logic behind our prediction outcomes. For the sake of the comparisons, all Pokemon are the same level and have ideal movesets. We'll examine how each of the best normal types we mentioned fares against their Psychic type counterparts. But first, a breakdown of the best Psychic types in Gen 1. We'll go into relevant stats for each Pokemon. We accounted for critical hits, as, in Gen 1, critical hit chance is tied to a Pokemon's speed stat, and does double damage as opposed to 1.5 times the damage. Alakazam has 135 base special, 120 base speed, 55 base HP, and 45 base defense. Alakazam hits fast and hard, but it is the definition of a glass cannon. There are no normal type Pokemon faster than Alakazam in Gen 1. However, if any normal types can take a hit from this Psychic type, they have a good chance of knocking it out. It gets Recover and Reflect, but most physical attacks will take out more than half of Alakazam's HP, which makes Recover pointless against normal types. And Reflect requires a turn to set up, which means taking a bit more damage than necessary. Both of these status moves can be used on the same moveset for greatly enhanced bulk, but at the expense of using up turns that would be better spent blasting opponents with Psychic. Against faster threats, using Reflect and Recover can be dangerous due to potential incoming hits. That is, if an opposing normal type Pokemon uses a speed boosting move such as Agility. Slowbro has 80 base special, 30 base speed, 95 base HP, and 110 base defense. By far the most physically defensive non-legendary Psychic type, Mew comes in second place with a base 100 defense. Normal types will have a hard time knocking Slowbro out. However, there are some normal types that have the raw attack power to two-shot Slowbro. That is, if said normal types can take a hit from this burly beast. Jynx has 95 base special, 95 base speed, 65 base HP, and 35 base defense. You can think of Jynx as a weaker Alakazam, as it's usually used in the same way, but to a lesser effect. As such, it also has Alakazam's weakness of being unable to take a hit from strong normal type attacks. Mr. Mime has 100 base special, 90 base speed, 40 base HP, and 65 base defense. Roughly the same as Jynx in terms of stats, Mr. Mime is another inferior version of Alakazam. It possesses the same vulnerability to getting hit square in the face with a solid normal type move. Hypno has 115 base special, 67 base speed, 85 base HP, and 70 base defense. Hypno is much more well-rounded in the stat department compared to most other psychic types. It can hit hard and take a bit of a beating. However, it's pretty slow, which results in it often getting outsped. Exeggutor has 125 base special, 55 base speed, 95 base HP, and 85 base defense. Exeggutor focuses on possessing great offensive potential and solid bulk. Plus, it can heal itself with moves like Leech Seed and Mega Drain. Few things can take out Exeggutor without a type advantage. However, many foes can outspeed it with ease. Starmie has 100 base special, 115 base speed, 60 base HP, and 85 base defense. With high special and speed stats, Starmie is almost as potent a force as Alakazam. More surprisingly is Starmie's decent bulk. It can withstand at least one hit from many adversaries, which make it arguably more viable than Alakazam. Not to mention its amazing coverage moves like Ice Beam and Thunderbolt, as well as Recover for clutch healing. Now, to cross-examine the normal types and psychic types in 1v1 matchups. Raticate has 55 base HP, 81 base attack, 97 base speed, and 50 base special. Raticate hits fast and hard despite being a commonly seen Pokemon. What's more, it can learn Super Fang at level 41, which lets it 2-shot or 3-shot pretty much anything. However, with low base HP and special stats, it can't take Psychic type attacks well and often gets 1-shot by them. Raticate loses to Alakazam because Alakazam outspeeds Raticate and can 1-shot it with Psychic. Raticate loses to Slowbro because Slowbro can tank Raticate's attacks long enough to take it out with Psychic or other powerful moves. Raticate wins against Jinx because Raticate slightly outspeeds Jinx and can 1-shot it with Hyper Fang, Takedown, or another strong normal type move. Raticate wins against Mr. Mime because Raticate outspeeds Mr. Mime and can 1-shot it with Hyper Fang, Hyper Beam, or another strong normal type move. Raticate most likely loses to Hypno because Hypno can most likely tank Raticate's attacks long enough to take it out with Psychic or other powerful moves. This one would be close. Raticate loses to Exeggutor because Exeggutor can tank Raticate's attacks long enough to take it out with Psychic or other powerful moves. Raticate loses to Starmie because Starmie outspeeds Raticate and can 1-shot it with Psychic. Snorlax has 160 base HP, 110 base attack, 30 base speed, and 65 base special. With huge base HP and attack stats, Snorlax can take a lot of punishment while also being able to dish it out. Even with a relatively low special stat, it can soak up Psychic type moves fairly well thanks to its generous base HP stat. On top of great bulk, Snorlax can learn Rest to recover all of its HP at the cost of sleeping for a few turns. If Snorlax gets lucky, it can awaken in as little as 2 turns to take out foes that couldn't defeat it during this time. Snorlax most likely wins against Alakazam because Snorlax can tank Alakazam's attacks long enough to take it out with Hyper Beam or other powerful moves. This one would be close, and would highly depend on if Alakazam could get a crit on turn 1. Snorlax most likely wins against Slowbro because Snorlax can tank Slowbro's attacks long enough to take it out with Hyper Beam or other powerful moves like Double Edge. This one would be close. Snorlax wins against Jinx because Snorlax can tank Jinx's attacks long enough to take it out with Double Edge or other powerful moves. Snorlax wins against Mr. Mime because Snorlax can tank Mr. Mime's attacks long enough to take it out with Double Edge or other powerful moves like Hyper Beam. Snorlax wins against Hypno because Snorlax can tank Hypno's attacks long enough to take it out with Hyper Beam, Double Edge, or other powerful moves. Snorlax loses to Exeggutor because Exeggutor outspeeds Snorlax and can tank Snorlax's attacks long enough to take it out with Psychic or other powerful moves. In addition, Exeggutor can use Leech Seed on Snorlax to heal from its massive base HP every turn. However, this one would be close. Snorlax loses to Starmie because Starmie outspeeds Snorlax and can tank Snorlax's attacks long enough to take it out with Psychic or other powerful moves. This one would be close and would depend highly on crits as well. Fearow has 65 base HP, 90 base attack, 100 base speed, and 61 base special. Since it's pretty quick and can hit fairly hard, Fearow has a great chance at taking down many Psychic types. Thanks to also being part flying and learning Drill Peck, it can pierce right through many enemies. With that said, it's got low base HP and special stats, which result in it being unable to take Psychic type attacks without going down. Fearow loses to Alakazam because Alakazam outspeeds it and can one-shot it with Psychic or other powerful moves. Fearow loses to Slowbro because Slowbro can tank Fearow's attacks long enough to take it out with Psychic or other strong moves. Fearow most likely wins against Jinx because Fearow slightly outspeeds Jinx and can one-shot it with Double Edge, Hyper Beam, or other powerful moves. Fearow most likely wins against Mr. Mime because Fearow slightly outspeeds Mr. Mime and can one-shot it with Double Edge, Hyper Beam, or other powerful moves. This one would be close. Fearow most likely loses to Hypno because Hypno can probably tank Fearow's attacks long enough to knock it out with Psychic or other powerful moves. This one would be close as well. Fearow wins against Exeggutor because Fearow outspeeds and has a type advantage due to being part flying type. Fearow can likely one-shot Exeggutor with a super effective Drill Peck. Fearow loses to Starmie because Starmie outspeeds Fearow and can one-shot it with a super effective Ice Beam or Thunderbolt. Pidgeot has 83 base HP, 80 base attack, 91 base speed, and 70 base special. Although it's slower and doesn't hit as hard as Fearow, Pidgeot makes up for this with better bulk. As such, it can take special attacks better than its flying type counterpart, but at the expense of being unable to one-shot foes as often. Also, Pidgeot can't learn Drill Peck, so it must make use of Fly for a decent flying type stab move. Pidgeot most likely loses to Alakazam because Alakazam outspeeds Pidgeot and can potentially one-shot it with Psychic. This one could be close due to Pidgeot's bulk. Pidgeot loses to Slowbro because Slowbro can tank Pidgeot's attacks long enough to take it out with Psychic or other powerful moves. Pidgeot loses to Jinx because Jinx outspeeds Pidgeot and can one-shot it with a super effective Ice Beam. Pidgeot loses to Mr. Mime because Mr. Mime potentially tanks one hit from Pidgeot and can one-shot it in return with a super effective Thunderbolt. However, this one would be close as well. Pidgeot wins against Hypno because Pidgeot outspeeds and can tank at least one attack from Hypno, which would let Pidgeot 2-hit Hypno. Hypno learns no damage dealing ice or electric type moves. Pidgeot wins against Exeggutor because Pidgeot outspeeds and has a type advantage due to being part flying type. Pidgeot can likely one-shot Exeggutor with a super effective Fly, even more so if it gets a crit. However, this one could be close. Pidgeot loses to Starmie because Starmie outspeeds Pidgeot and can one-shot it with a super effective Ice Beam or Thunderbolt. Persian has 65 base HP, 70 base attack, 115 base speed, and 65 base special. As the fastest normal type Pokemon in Gen 1, Persian will move first against all Psychic types except Alakazam and Starmie, the latter of which it has a speed tie with. Due to this, Persian can land the first hit and gain an early advantage in most cases. With that said, its attack base stat is pretty low, so it'll need at least 2 or 3 turns to take down most foes. On top of that, Persian has pretty low base HP and special stats, which means it won't last long against most Psychic type foes. Additionally, don't forget that Persian's high base speed allows it to land critical hits more often, which could be a decisive factor in most of its matchups. Persian loses to Alakazam because Alakazam outspeeds Persian and can one-shot it with Psychic. Persian loses to Slowbro because Slowbro can tank Persian's attacks long enough to take it out with Psychic or other powerful moves. Persian wins against Jinx because Persian outspeeds Jinx and can one-shot it with a Double Edge, a Hyper Beam, or other powerful moves. Persian wins against Mr. Mime because Persian outspeeds Mr. Mime and can one-shot it or two-shot it with a Double Edge, Hyper Beam, or other powerful moves. Persian most likely wins against Hypno because Persian outspeeds Hypno and can two-shot it with Double Edge or other powerful moves. This one would be close due to Hypno's bulk. Persian loses to Exeggutor because Exeggutor can tank Persian's attacks long enough to take it out with Psychic or other strong moves. Persian loses to Starmie because Starmie can tank Persian's attacks long enough to take it out with Psychic or other strong moves. Lickitung has 90 base HP, 55 base attack, 30 base speed, and 60 base special. Only thing Lickitung has going for it is its fairly high base HP stat. Due to this, it won't fare well against most Psychic types. Although a somewhat viable Pokemon for an in-game run, Lickitung is definitely the worst normal type out of the ones on this list. Lickitung loses to Alakazam because Alakazam outspeeds Lickitung and can one-shot or two-shot it with Psychic or other powerful moves. Lickitung loses to Slowbro because Slowbro can tank Lickitung's attacks long enough to take it out with Psychic or other strong moves. Lickitung loses to Jinx because Jinx outspeeds Lickitung and can one-shot or two-shot it with Psychic or other powerful moves. Lickitung loses to Mr. Mime because Mr. Mime outspeeds Lickitung and can one-shot or two-shot it with Psychic or other mighty moves. This one could be close. Lickitung loses to Hypno because Hypno outspeeds Lickitung and can one-shot or two-shot it with Psychic or other strong moves. This one would also be close. Lickitung loses to Exeggutor because Exeggutor can tank Lickitung's attacks long enough to take it out with Psychic or other powerful moves. Lickitung loses to Starmie because Starmie can tank Lickitung's attacks long enough to take it out with Psychic or other mighty moves. Kangaskhan has 105 base HP, 95 base attack, 90 base speed, and 40 base special. With a nice pool of HP as well as great attack and speed stats, Kangaskhan is arguably the best physical normal type in Gen 1. It hits fast and hard and can take a hit or two in return. We should point out that due to its low special stat, it can't deal with too many Psychic type attacks, but it can definitely absorb one or two for most foes. Kangaskhan most likely wins against Alakazam because Kangaskhan can tank Alakazam's attacks long enough to take it out with Double Edge or Hyper Beam or other powerful moves. This one would be close and would depend on whether or not Alakazam gets a critical hit. Kangaskhan most likely wins against Slowbro because Kangaskhan outspeeds Slowbro and can tank Slowbro's attacks long enough to take it out with Double Edge, Hyper Beam, or other powerful moves. This one would also be close. Kangaskhan wins against Jinx because Kangaskhan can tank Jinx's first attack and can one-shot it with Double Edge or other powerful moves. Kangaskhan wins against Mr. Mime because Kangaskhan can tank Mr. Mime's potential first attack and can one-shot it with Double Edge or other powerful moves. It should be mentioned that these two Pokemon are in a speed tie, so whoever moves first will be a flip of the coin. Kangaskhan wins against Hypno because Kangaskhan outspeeds Hypno and can one-shot or two-shot it with Double Edge or other powerful moves like Hyper Beam. Kangaskhan wins against Exeggutor because Kangaskhan outspeeds Exeggutor and can one-shot or two-shot it with Double Edge or other powerful moves. This one would be close due to Exeggutor's bulk and healing factor. Kangaskhan loses to Starmie because Starmie outspeeds Kangaskhan and can tank its attacks long enough to take it out with Psychic or other powerful moves. This one would also be close and would depend on critical hits. Wigglytuff has 140 base HP, 70 base attack, 45 base speed, and 50 base special. More of a damage sponge than a physical attacker, Wigglytuff can top things out in most situations. Its large base HP stat should let it tank at least one psychic type attack for most foes. Although its attack stat is fairly low, thanks to powerhouse moves like Double Edge and Hyper Beam, it can knock out many enemies in 2 hits. Wigglytuff most likely wins against Alakazam because Wigglytuff can tank Alakazam's attacks long enough to take it out with Double Edge, Hyper Beam, or other powerful moves. However, this one would be close and would depend on whether or not Alakazam gets a crit. Wigglytuff most likely loses to Slowbro because Slowbro can tank Wigglytuff's attacks long enough to take it out with Psychic or other strong moves. Wigglytuff wins against Jinx because Wigglytuff can tank Jinx's attacks long enough to take it out with Double Edge or other powerful moves like Hyper Beam. Wigglytuff wins against Mr. Mime because Wigglytuff can tank Mr. Mime's attacks long enough to take it out with Double Edge or other powerful moves. Wigglytuff most likely wins against Hypno because Wigglytuff can tank Hypno's attacks long enough to take it out with Hyper Beam or other strong moves. This one would be close due to Hypno's bulk. Wigglytuff loses to Executor because Executor can tank Wigglytuff's attacks long enough to take it out with Psychic or other powerful moves. Furthermore, Executor's Leech Seed would allow it to heal quite a lot from Wigglytuff's high base HP. Wigglytuff most likely loses to Starmie because Starmie outspeeds Wigglytuff and can tank its attacks long enough to take it out with Psychic or other powerful moves. This one would also be pretty close. Clefable has 90 base HP, 70 base attack, 60 base speed, and 85 base special. Despite its middling all-around stats, Clefable's base special stat allows it to take a hit or two from Psychic types better than most normal type Pokemon. Backed up by decent base HP, Clefable doesn't usually go down quickly. Since it can hang in there, it can counterattack with normal type moves enforced by its moderate base attack stat. Clefable wins against Alakazam because Clefable can tank Alakazam's attacks long enough to take it out with Double Edge or other powerful moves. However, this would quite heavily depend on whether or not Alakazam gets a crit. As such, this one would be close. Clefable loses to Slowbro because Slowbro can tank Clefable's attacks long enough to take it out with Psychic or other powerful moves. Clefable wins against Jinx because Clefable can tank Jinx's attacks long enough to take it out with Double Edge, Hyper Beam, or other strong moves. Clefable wins against Mr. Mime because Clefable can tank Mr. Mime's attacks long enough to take it out with Double Edge, Hyper Beam, or other strong moves. Clefable most likely loses to Hypno because Hypno can tank Clefable's attacks long enough to take it out with Psychic or other powerful moves. This one would be close. Clefable loses to Executor because Executor can tank Clefable's attacks long enough to take it out with Psychic or other strong moves. Clefable loses to Starmie because Starmie can tank Clefable's attacks long enough to take it out with Psychic or other powerful moves. Chansey has 250 base HP, 5 base attack, 50 base speed, and 105 base special. If min-maxing were a Gen 1 Pokemon, it'd be Chansey. Thanks to stall tactics, Chansey doesn't need a good base attack stat. Its colossal base HP lets it set up Toxic and abuse Soft-Boiled to a great effect. And with a high base special stat, it can tank hits from Psychic types easily. This high base special stat also lets it unleash awesome coverage moves against certain foes. Chansey wins against Alakazam because Chansey can tank Alakazam's attacks long enough to take it out with Toxic and other moves, as well as healing. Chansey wins against Slowbro because Chansey can tank Slowbro's attacks long enough to take it out with Toxic and other moves. Chansey wins against Jinx because Chansey can tank Jinx's attacks long enough to take it out with Toxic and other moves. Chansey wins against Mr. Mime because Chansey can tank Mr. Mime's attacks long enough to take it out with Toxic and other moves. Chansey wins against Hypno because Chansey can tank Hypno's attacks long enough to take it out with Toxic and other moves. Chansey wins against Executor because Chansey can tank Executor's attacks long enough to take it out with Toxic and other moves, such as coverage moves like Ice Beam and Fire Blast. Conversely, Executor can heal a lot from Chansey by setting up a Leech Seed. However, Toxic and Ice Beam or Fire Blast combined should be enough to take out Executor, though this one could be close. Chansey wins against Starmie because Chansey can tank Starmie's attacks long enough to take it out with Toxic and other coverage moves, such as Thunderbolt. Dodrio has 60 base HP, 110 base attack, 100 base speed, and 60 base special. Arguably the best normal and flying type in Gen 1, Dodrio hits hard and faster than most of its normal type brethren. Its stats are very comparable to Fearow's, and, like Fearow, it can also learn Drill Peck for a solid flying type stab. Dodrio loses to Alakazam because Alakazam outspeeds it and can one-shot it with Psychic or other strong moves. Dodrio most likely loses to Slowbro because Slowbro can tank Dodrio's attacks long enough to take it out with Psychic or other powerful moves. However, this one would be close. Dodrio wins against Jinx because Dodrio slightly outspeeds Jinx and can one-shot it with Double Edge or other strong moves. Dodrio wins against Mr. Mime because Dodrio slightly outspeeds Mr. Mime and can one-shot it with Hyper Beam, Double Edge, or other strong moves. Dodrio wins against Hypno because Dodrio outspeeds Hypno and can one-shot it or two-shot it with Double Edge or other strong moves. Dodrio wins against Executor because Dodrio outspeeds and has a type advantage due to being part flying. Dodrio loses to Starmie because Starmie outspeeds it and can one-shot it with a super effective Ice Beam or Thunderbolt. Tauros has 75 base HP, 100 base attack, 110 base speed, and 40 base special. In terms of base stats, Tauros greatly resembles Dodrio. As such, it fares similarly well against Psychic-type foes for similar reasons. However, it has a bit more bulk. Tauros loses to Alakazam because Alakazam outspeeds it and can one-shot it with Psychic or other powerful moves. Tauros most likely loses to Slowbro because Slowbro can tank Tauros' attacks long enough to take it out with Psychic or other powerful moves. This one would be close. Tauros wins against Jinx because Tauros outspeeds Jinx and can one-shot it with Double Edge, Hyper Beam, or other powerful moves. Tauros wins against Mr. Mime because Tauros outspeeds Mr. Mime and can one-shot it with Double Edge, Hyper Beam, or other strong moves. Tauros wins against Hypno because Tauros outspeeds Hypno and can one-shot it with Double Edge, Hyper Beam, or other strong attacks. Tauros most likely loses to Executor because Executor can tank Tauros' attacks long enough to take it out with Psychic or other powerful moves. This one would be close, and would depend on whether or not Tauros gets a crit. Tauros most likely loses to Starmie because Starmie outspeeds Tauros and can tank its attacks long enough to take it out with Psychic or other strong moves. This one would also be close. Out of a total of 84 1v1 duels between Psychic types and normal types, Psychic types won 42 times and normal types also won 42 times. In the end, the best normal types and Psychic types in Gen 1 are evenly matched in combat. While not a decisive and direct victory for normal types, it shows that even against the formerly crowned best type in Gen 1, normal types can hold their own. Now, consider this alongside the facts that normal types are more available and have more access to great moves. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please consider dropping a like and maybe even subscribing. We've got more video essays and comparative pieces like this coming out soon, so stay tuned for that. Also, if you have any feedback or want to drop a comment to let us know what you think about this video or about any part of it, such as the matchups at the end, please feel free to do so. We would love to hear your thoughts. Until the next video, happy adventuring, friends!